Hola mis amores, welcome back to another episode of How to Build a Home. I'm Roxie y
I'm Bobby Williams with Wolfpack Builders.
and today we're going to talk about footings and foundation. Hey Bobby, it's been a minute since our last video and I have a few questions for you.
Okay, hey, yes. So last time we were out here, it was hot.
It was hot.
And now it's cold. So now it's going to be a different kind of build. And the reason for the delay was the county had a few questions about the plans. And then that's the county. Mm-hmm. Then the municipality, the city, had a few questions about the septic. And then the HOA got involved. So that's put at least 2 months on the time clock since I saw you in the heat of the summer. And now it's cold.
Oh, wow. And how's the whole process?
We're here now. So you had a few questions about the footings. So since we met last time, we were picking out lots, talking about where to find a lot, what lot fit for you. So this particular homeowner, he wanted a lot where his front door faced exactly west. So that was his choice, and this is the lot that he chose. So since we've seen each other last time, we've established the permit, we've dug the footers, and we're standing on the footing right now. So if you have some questions, I'll answer them for you.
Yeah, so my first question is, why do we need to dig so deep if the lot looks solid?
Okay, so we looked like the lot was hard, but you have to go to a certain depth per the local zone in the country. Mm-hmm. So it really dictates on the frost line how deep you have to go, because this ground freezes at a certain level. It's different than like New York, different than Texas, but this is the frost line for North Carolina. So even though it might look like you can place it right on top of the ground, we have to go deep enough to get below the frost line, because when ground freezes, it wants to push up. Mm-hmm. So we don't want that to upheave the house and cause cracks. That's why we have to go so deep.
You know what, Bobby? I really like this area because I can ask you multiple questions.
Yes, please do.
My second question is, what kind of concrete should be used for the footing?
Okay, so the concrete is dictated by 1, soil conditions, 2, the engineer. That's why earlier in the videos, we recommended that the architect draw the plans and the engineer stamp them. Mm-hmm. But really, nobody can see under the ground. But typically, we use 2,000 pounds per square inch of concrete, which will support a heavy house. So that's pretty standard in this area. Obviously, you want the soil to be dug to the proper depth to support the concrete and the house. And that's a science in itself. The operator that is on the equipment digging the footer, he has a good feel for the resistance of the machine to see if he's getting at proper depth. And there's a couple other tests that we can do in the field, like probe it with a probe bar and just kind of feel it, just kind of knowing from experience. That's why you want to use trade partners that know what they're doing. Exactly. And have been around a while. But the engineer specs it out, but typical concrete strength is 2,000 pounds per square inch, as opposed to the bearing capacity of the soil is typically 2,000 pounds per square foot. So there's a difference there. And I know you asked me before about rebar. Is rebar necessary in a footer? And if you build by code, you are probably a C grade builder. But
which means
you're about average. But if you go above and beyond and put rebar, concrete is 10 times stronger in compression. But just say we missed a spot in here, the soil's bad somewhere, it's going to want to settle. So now that concrete gets put in tension at the bottom. And that's what the rebar's for, to go in the bottom of the footer. So if the footer tries to settle out, the rebar is going to bring the tensile strength that the concrete doesn't have. So it's not necessarily necessary, but it's highly recommended. It's an extra layer of safety.
Absolutely. Safety first. So Bobby uses rebar, as you can see. So what is that? Why do we need a step down over here?
Okay, so if you remember from the previous videos, this lot looks flat, but it actually slopes. And I've told you before, you can just kind of see the street level. It fades away. So on the high side over here, as we move to the other side of this large foundation, we have natural fall in the earth. So we periodically just step down the concrete periodically, and we do it in 8-inch increments because that's what we call block work. Concrete blocker 8-inch by 16. So we step it down 8-inch for the mason. So you build on planes and horizontal level instead of slope. So we just step it down periodically. So this might be 2 brick high. This one's going to be 3 block high, block. So 2, 3, and that's why we got an 8-inch step down, if that makes sense. We're just stair-stepping it down as the topography dictates.
All right. Makes sense. It makes sense. And what about this pile of dirt right here?
Okay, so that's the leftover dirt from the footing. And we typically try to get it on the outside of the foundation, but when the machine comes in here, it's not always conducive to get that to the outside. But after we start laying foundation walls in here, again, we have to level this foundation out to the lowest point in case a water line busts. We want the water to run out. So we will use this extra dirt to slope the interior of the foundation. And when that'll be our next video, we'll see what that looks like. But we just slope this ground to get the water to run out. If there's any groundwater that gets infiltrated or an interior water line bust, we know we have slope to get it out from under the house. So we will use these spoils from the footer to create a natural slope inside the foundation walls.
Nice. There's a lot to learn because I did not know that.
Yep. So, again, we reiterate, you want to use the professionals. Roxie is the real estate, me as a general contractor, but you want to use people. If you try to save money, you're probably getting a C player. You might pay a little bit more, but you want to get A players like Roxie and myself.
Absolutely. All right, so we have talked about sloping on the inside for drainage. What about water on the outside?
Same thing applies. After the foundation walls get built and we establish where we are on the lot, we just come in here and do waterproofing, which is like a tar, and French drains that go around the perimeter in case water from rainstorms or natural drainage from the topography come against the foundation wall. We just build it up to a certain level with the waterproof, and we also do the same thing with the dirt on the outside. We'll establish grade on the outside as far as heights. That's more complicated to show on a video, but it'll become more clear on the next foundation video. But we do the same thing on the outside. We just naturally pitch the dirt so we can get water from around the house to the lowest point and exit it the way it naturally wants to flow across the lot. So we just put a house where water used to want to drain across. Now we've put an obstacle. So now we need to establish perimeter drainage. So we create what they call swells in the sides of the yard, the lowest point. So we'll build it up high against the waterproofing on the exterior foundation wall, slope it to the lowest point, which is the swell, and then we just drain it around the house.
Wow.
So we have to have the foundation high enough to achieve drainage. That's the trick. That's where the experience in this building game comes in.
How high it has to be?
Well, this particular homeowner wanted 48 inches for his purposes and the look of the stairs and the garage and stuff like that. But I would say minimum of 2 to 3 courses of block, which is 24 to 30 inches, 32 inches. That gives you enough slope on a longer foundation to kind of build high on one end and let it taper out on the low end. So that's kind of my rule of thumb.
All right, so average is between 24 to 30.
That's probably a good average. That's a good rule of thumb on a longer foundation. Some can be lower, obviously, and some are going to be higher. It just depends on the lot, if it's flat or steep, So just depends on a lot of different situations, but average is about 24 inches.
Okay. And tell me, Bobby, what are these?
Okay.
Right here.
So, good question. So, again, we've established that we have a minimum footer width and depth because of the frost line. Mm-hmm. We have step downs and rebar because of the engineer or the topography. But this is where the surveyor comes back and pins the footer. That's what we call it, pin the footer.
Pin the footing.
That'll be the face of block right here. That's where the mason's going to lay his block straight down this footer here. So we have to have this wide enough to receive an 8-inch block, but the face of the block will be right here. And then we have to have enough projection of the concrete. So this one looks a little close depending on what side the block's on. I don't know that right now until the mason gets started, but we may have to add a little concrete on this side, but most likely the block's going to be on that side going up that wall. But these are a guideline for the mason to set up the walls per the plans.
Wow. Okay, my last question. What happens if it rains after digging the footings?
Okay, so if it rains, unfortunately, after you dig the footings and you do not have concrete in the hole, you will have to dig out the muck. We call it the muck. You'll have to muck it out back down to solid ground. Unfortunately, it's necessary evil. You can't just put concrete on wet soil because that creates a situation where now it's going to compact and settle out, and that's no good. So unfortunately, if you get caught with the rain, you're going to have to come and dig back out to get back down to hard ground.
And what happens if people don't do that?
That house is going to settle over time.
Oh, wow.
Because the mud will compress, an inch or two, and then that's just going to be a place for settlement over 30 years, and then your headers and your drywall will crack. Like you see why is drywall cracks over headers in 30-year-old houses? That's exactly why.
Oh, wow.
This whole thing settled out because it didn't get down to solid ground or the engineered bearing point of that ground. So
very interested. That's why you guys have to contact professionals like ourselves to help you build your next dream house. Bobby.
Sí,
¿Qué es esto, Bobby?
Okay. So a good builder will leave love notes for all his subcontractors. So we were talking earlier about how we're going to slope the interior to the low spot. Well, this is the low spot. So I'm telling the mason when he starts, leave me a 4-inch drain on the footer between your blocks. So we have to get PVC pipe out here and we'll connect to the waterproofing on the exterior. But I need the mason to place a piece of 4-inch PVC so the water in an emergency can get out. Because anybody who doesn't do this, they're going to come back and bust a hole in the block. Why would you want to destroy something that's brand new? So if you're thinking ahead, you just place a drain right there, ask the mason to help you out. So we're going to slope this lot to this point, and then the water's going to run out right there in an emergency. We're going to keep water out of the foundation, but in case a water line busts on a cold day like today that you can't see coming, you want to evacuate the water. So it's going to naturally run inside and then try to get out. And this is the point. Wow.
And every builder does this, or it's just Bobby Williams?
The good ones do it. So, and all through the process, you'll see me writing notes, especially during frame inspection where we're checking behind the framer to make sure he's accurate. We're leaving little punch-out notes for him. There's other notes on the footing for 4-inch drain. This, I told you in the beginning, is well and septic. So the well is going to be up there. We left a 2-inch pipe for a 1-inch water line. Back here was the septic system, which is a 6-inch sleeve for the plumbers to get out. And then on this foundation, since it's so large, we're going to probably do 2 crawl space doors, access under the house. I haven't picked those out yet, waiting for the homeowner to come back in town, but we're going to do 2 crawl space doors. So those are more notes I'm going to tell the mason where to put the door, the access.
Well, thank you so much for sharing every single one of my questions. And I do have one more question. What are this?
Okay, so this is a crawl-space foundation as opposed to a raised slab or a monolithic slab. So we're standing on the exterior wall, but these are interior piers. Those will be little columns throughout the house that will carry certain weight loads from the framing. It's just called an interior pier.
Interior pier.
The most of the weight bears on the exterior wall, but there's certain load points that come down at like stairs or doorways or larger openings they have to bear. So we just put interior pier footings for interior columns or interior piers for the mason, for the framer to span girders or joist or capture a certain column or steel or load point coming down. That's a direct bear to the soil.
Well, thank you so much, Bobby, for coming and for your time and for explaining this for every single one of you guys. So, what do you think are we doing for our next video?
Okay, so the next video is going to go right into foundation. So when you see us next time, there will be block work and brickwork on top of these footers. And remember, adios, mis amores.
Adios.